Looking for Warehouse 36. Do you know where it is?
Look, it's right there. The warehouse is opposite the jetty. You can't miss it.
Understood.
You know who the building belongs to, don't you?
I don't have time to play guessing games. I'm investigating the death of a whole family.
You're right.
2 seconds later.
It belonged to Charles Hawkins.
You're a fucking asshole.
You're absolutely right. I'm about to do something terrible.
Call of Cthulhu is an intriguing and often unpredictable game that tries to capture the essence of Lovecraftian horror. Like most Cthulhu projects, it has its shared issues, including development, as this game frequently feels disjointed and unpredictable with the gameplay. Originally developed by Frogwares, known for their Sherlock Holmes games starting in 2002.
Righto, Mr. Holmes. If there's aught to be found, the irregulars will have it. I'll send the words out to the lads.
The project was outsourced in February 2016 due to the Sherlock Holmes IP being transferred over to another publisher, Big Ben Interactive, while Frogwares continued to work on their own Cthulhu games with the assets that they had already made, which ultimately led to the Sinking City being created. So this is where Cyanide Studios came into the picture, taking on the task of completing Call of Cthulhu.
Are these guys French?
They're the only ones who applied.
While the studio is primarily recognized for its cycling simulator and Stinks, Master of Shadows. Given this background, one might question whether Cyanide Studios could create a compelling horror experience for Cthulhu fans to truly enjoy. It's also worth considering the history of challenges associated with Cthulhu games, such as in the case of Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth.
Finally glimpsed upon what lives in the dark corners of the earth,
which had a long development process due to the scope being too big at the time with such limited hardware. This ultimately led to the bankruptcy of its developer, Headfirst Productions. So it's worth seeing 6 years later if Call of Cthulhu was just another failure in a long line of Cthulhu games, or if it was truly a gem of a game. Set in 1924 Boston, we play Sebastian Castellanos. That's the wrong script. Hold on. Okay, here we are. Set in 1924 Boston, we play Private Detective Edward Pierce, a grizzled war veteran on the verge of losing his license due to a lack of cases.
Show yourself worthy of the Wentworth Detective Agency, and we might keep you on the payroll. Mr. Pierce, are you still...
Oh, my dude, you just got pranked! Bet you didn't see that one coming, huh?
The situation changes, however, when he receives a visit from Stephen Webster, a well-known art collector. Webster presents Pierce with a compelling case, which involves the death of his daughter, Sarah Hawkins, a renowned artist known for her mysterious and tortured paintings. Webster tasks Pierce with investigating the Hawkins death while providing him with only limited information. His only clue is a reference to Warehouse 36 on the island of Darkwater, where Pierce's journey begins. So very similar story beats like in any of H.P. Lovecraft's work, which is fine as an excellent setup to your story, but it all depends on how the narrative plays out. As you explore the island, you'll interact with the inhabitants using a dialogue system, similar to that of the Fallout series, using various skills on objects in the environment and as well as dialogue options. Success in these interactions depends on the skills percentage, with a number of character points invested into these skills, with this introducing an RNG mechanic similar to the board game of the same name, where your actions may succeed or fail based on a game of chance, leading to different methods of achieving the same outcome.
Damn, I broke it.
While this mechanic allows some level of player freedom in the earlier levels, sadly later on it's underused in the game. This is honestly a damn shame, as I enjoy mechanics like this, allowing the player a significant level of choice on how you approach some areas.
Neat.
Music and sound design are integral to creating an immersive experience, and as well as an unsettling one. This is essential for any game that is trying to take inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft's work. And Call of Cthulhu effectively employs sound design, using eerie ambient noise and dissonant melodies, and as well as sudden sound cues to enhance the tension and invoke a sense of dread in the player, adding to the horror.
I'm all by myself, I can just kick back and read. Oh, damn it!
Simon Pole, the composer for Call of Cthulhu, masterfully complements the game's aesthetic and narrative with his use of ambient soundscapes and otherworldly compositions to capture the game's tone, effectively immersing the player into the world. But with his sparse use of music during critical moments, can honestly enhance the atmosphere without overempowering it. Unfortunately, the soundtrack is not really available online, only confined to one single YouTube upload. This is honestly a damn shame, as certain tracks significantly elevate the game's experience. But here are just a couple of my favorite tracks. There's one thing I truly genuinely like about this game, it's definitely these tracks, because they exemplify a high level of craftsmanship in the game's sound design. And to be honest, these significantly contribute to the immersive experience, showcasing the composer's skill in creating an atmospheric soundtrack that really enriches the immersion. However, the sound mixing leaves much to be desired, with some sounds like falling from a ledge are too quiet and lacking impact. Additionally, the vocals and sound effects sometimes need to be correctly balanced with their audio levels. Sound effects are there to enhance their immersion, not take away from it, which kinda affects the overall audio quality. But Call of Cthulhu really does have some good environmental sounds. While the voice acting is generally effective in conveying the character's desperation and as well as madness, there are occasional moments where it feels inconsistent. These instances can briefly disrupt our immersion, as some of the vocal talent seems to be lacking directions, especially in a couple of the cutscenes.
It is not about me, but innocent lives.
The name, it reminds us of the golden age of Darkwater.
But overall, most of the cast do deliver a pretty strong performance.
But she failed. That's what counts.
Though with some scenes suffering from subpar direction. Unfortunately, the poor lip syncing in the cutscenes becomes increasingly distracting as the game progresses.
Brother,
On the positive side, the soundtrack, sound effects, and voice acting significantly enhance their immersion. And to be honest, I really thought it was a standout gem here, with the sound effects really conveying a sense of dread, but I was pretty immersed, especially with the stellar songs that the composer made.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
So let's dive into the visual style of Call of Cthulhu. One of the first things that stands out is the game's notable use of the color green, and I mean goddamn, it's everywhere. This color choice creates a unique ambience to help support the Lovecraftian atmosphere, but sometimes it can be a little bit too much. This game heavily uses post-processing for its visuals, with film grain, chromatic aberration, and the green tint. With all these working together, it can make the game look like a blurry mess at some points, although you can turn off some of these effects by configuring with the game's engine files. It would be nice though if they were actually in the settings, instead of having to dig around to look for these particular visual effects. On another note, we should probably discuss the character models and the textures. Even by 2018 standards, these models look harsh, and the animations just look really jarring and out of place. Not to mention the animations of most of the character models seem to have their elbows locked in place for some reason, with this limiting the full range of expression for the model to achieve. And while playing, I noticed several issues with the textures, like for instance, the police officer's badge suffers from noticeable clipping, and some character models begin to flicker or just completely spaz out when you get too close to it. Additionally, some certain textures may appear unfinished.
Nice fucking model!
Sharp edges becoming apparent, and there is a noticeable drop in quality at certain points. But at the same time, some cutscenes are well directed, inspiring inspiration from films like Alien and Jacob's Ladder. However, these themes often feel out of place in a game that's aiming for immersion. And as well, the transitions from first person to third person can really disrupt that experience, with it pulling the players out of the moment where there is a sense of tension. It takes the player out of it just to undermine the sense of urgency. Since we're discussing immersion, let's address the UI design. One of my main issues is the constant presence of the main objective markers on the screen. It's particularly jarring while that a UI cannot be turned off, a crosshair can be. I just think it's kind of stupid. I just think a better idea would be integrating the objectives into the character's journal instead of being displayed continuously. Would have made it less intrusive while preserving the game's atmosphere. One standout feature of this game is definitely the lighting, which honestly really enhances the atmosphere. The dynamic lighting and the use of shadows creates a fantastic and visual striking environments, but it also helps build tension. You also have an Amnesia style lamp that requires fuel with these oil cans. You also have another light source, a lighter from Pierce's Lost Battalion, and honestly these elements help enhance the game's theme of Pierce's isolation and immersing the players further into the 1920s setting. Although the graphics lack quality and the animations need more polish, the game's effective use of lighting and environmental detail contributes significantly to the overall atmosphere. With decent visual foundation, it's worth exploring how these elements interact with the core gameplay mechanics.
Come here, Mini-Me. Can I have a hug? I love you. You complete me.
We should probably address the obvious question. Is Call of Cthulhu a walking simulator? Technically, it could be considered an interactive walking simulator, but in all seriousness, it's more accurately described as an adventure game, with elements of stealth and some decent puzzles. And unfortunately one of the worst shooting sections I've seen in a game. But overall, how do the mechanics work together to create an immersive experience? As stated earlier, there is a dialogue system that attempts to emulate from the Fallout series. While some of your earlier mentioned dialogue choices can affect on how you approach an area differently, it becomes apparent that your choices don't matter, especially in dialogue later on.
Alright, I might need you after all.
6.5 hours later.
Ah. It's you. I'm here for her, not you.
I don't care why you're here.
Who the fuck starts a conversation like that?
The player's choice and freedom are limited because of the storytelling takes center stage over the gameplay. This is not good for a video game that's trying to immerse the player into their world. So the dialogue system fails to be engaging, and as well as feels repetitive, instead of being an important mechanic, as it's used as an exposition dump instead. Besides that, we'll move on to the skill tree where Pierce can receive CP or character points after completing a task or gaining another clue. These skills are introduced into the RNG mechanics, where you can allocate your character points across 7 different skill categories. These include Strength, which allow you to overcome physical obstacles; Eloquency influences dialogue outcomes akin to Charisma in the Fallout games; or Spots Hidden helps discover unhidden clues. You also have Psychology that affects dialogue interaction and outcomes. Then you also have Investigation that enables lockpicking and a deeper understanding of events. Medicine provides enhanced medical knowledge, and Occultism offers insight into occult matters and as well as the lore. Success in these skills varies, as it's a dice roll every time. But if you have the skills over 60 or to 80%, it'll succeed most of the time. Like Dark Corners of the Earth, Call of Cthulhu has a sanity mechanic, although it could be a better executed.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
What was that? I don't know.
Throughout the game, Pierce will experience mental trauma that affects his overall sanity, whether that is witnessing a horrific sight or reading a occult book. Pierce can be in one of these 3 states depending on the factors, like staying in a closet for too long or witnessing any eldritch horror. This first state is stable, where Pierce's skills and dialogue choices are the most effective in this state. The second state is shaken. The screen becomes distorted with visual effects, and Pierce's breathing becomes more noticeable. And finally, his third state, psychotic. At this final stage, Pierce suffers from full-blown panic attacks, screaming at the top of his lungs. Overall, this mechanic fails to generate a genuine sense of anxiety or tension. The Call of Cthulhu really doesn't provide such stakes, reducing the overall impact of this mechanic. One of Pierce's unique skills that sets him apart from most detectives is shown early on, and that is his reconstruction ability, which lets him use a detective-like vision to piece together crime scenes and find hidden clues. This mechanic is supposed to make investigations more engaging and allow the player to receive more information depending on specific skills that you use in the sequence. However, it's a bit inconsistent, since other characters also have seemed to use this ability, which can undermine its effectiveness, and making it less unique. As it was tied to Pierce in the early beginning of the game, it seems like everyone just uses it. There are a couple good puzzles that you can complete differently. I would say that most of the puzzles are pretty simple or downright broken, as in the case of Chapter 7, where you can look at the safe's numbers during the reconstruction sequence and completely skip the puzzle.
That's it?
And the AI is pretty slow in certain sections, so you can basically just run right past it most of the time. Not to mention, you can have a whole asylum on you, but if you break their line of sight, they'll stop looking for you. These sections are the worst, as they really pad out the runtime. I find this surprising, coming from the team that made Stinks, since all you do in that game is stealth with the side of occasional murder. Although the game is mostly about stealth and investigation, there is one combat section near the end. This involves a simple shooting mechanic, where you press a button to take down transformed sailors. This section is entirely pointless as a level, with unlimited ammo until you reach up to a certain point, which makes saving an officer from these sailors for extra ammo pointless. It really just feels like a last-minute addition to pad out the runtime rather than add any meaningful gameplay. But while the skills, stealth, and unique abilities like reconstruction add depth to the gameplay, it somewhat needs help with narrative coherence and meaningful interactions that could lead to different outcomes. The mechanics had a potential to create an atmospheric experience, but improvements to the AI and puzzles could make the gameplay more engaging. While the gameplay itself lacks depth, with its mechanics pushed aside for a more narrative-driven experience. So how does the narrative hold up? And frankly, if my earlier example didn't paint a clear enough picture, this narrative struggles to tell a coherent story. While it ambitiously tries to capture something unique and raises the question, is this narrative a step forward, or does it merely tell a mediocre story while only using the name of H.P. Lovecraft? When the journey begins with Officer Bradley, Pierce is escorted to the Hawkins estate. While exploring, they discover a hidden underground area where they witness a cult performing a ritual of some sorts. To Pierce's horror, his recurring nightmares come to reality when it's revealed that Charles Hawkins is still alive. The situation quickly escalates with Charles Hawkins attacking Bradley and Pierce finding himself trapped in a cave-in. And this is where there's an abrupt shift in the narrative. Somehow, Pierce is rushed to asylum. Nevertheless, Pierce awakens in the asylum, run by a Dr. Fuller. Pierce witnesses a patient get dragged out of one of their cells, assisted by a nurse named Marie Colton. He's able to escape the basement by creating a diversion. Right before he leaves, Pierce encounters Francis Sanders, a friend of Sarah Hawkins. Sanders was driven insane by a painting that he had received from Sarah, called the Shambler. This painting ultimately led to him tearing out his own eyes. Before Francis can say anymore, he's killed by an invisible force. Pierce rushes out, only to be knocked out by some gas, and somehow Officer Bradley arrives, taking Pierce back to Hawkins' estate. After having another nightmare, Pierce decides to investigate Francis Sanders' estate for any more clues. When arriving to the estate, Pierce speaks with Irene Sanders, the late wife of Francis. Their discussion comes around the painting and Sarah Hawkins, and it's revealed that she was actually kind of jealous of Sarah, and Sarah was actually worried about the painting as well. It's revealed that Sarah gave up the cursed painting to Francis after months of him asking for it. So the question is, why would she give a personal friend a painting that is cursed? Well, to be honest, it's for the plot, and, well, say it with me now.
That's just lazy writing.
Anyways, after this, Pierce enters the art museum, coming across the Shambler painting, where it seemingly comes out of the painting just to attack Pierce. Pierce manages to find a knife in the art museum, being able to send the Shambler back into the painting. Before cutting off his hand, he consults with Cat Baker about the knife, and the one who sold it to Francis Sanders, who apparently owns a bookstore on the island. After arriving at the bookstore, Pierce realizes that it was broken into, And of course, who else is it but Charles Hawkins? Apparently, Charles Hawkins was seeking the Necronomicon. After opening it, Pierce has a vision of Maureen Colden, discovering that Sarah Hawkins is still alive before being sedated by Dr. Fuller. When returning to the bookstore, Pierce meets Algernon Drake. After a bit of talking, Algernon offers to help Pierce save Colden. Whether you deny him or take him along with you, it really doesn't matter. As Pierce heads back to the asylum, where he finds Colden is dead, but learns that Sarah Hawkins is still alive as well. Taking Sarah along with him, they escape to the furnace room, where they're confronted by Charles Hawkins. This is where Pierce learns that Sarah is crucial to the cult on the island, being needed to summon Cthulhu due to her powers. After conversing with Charles for a little bit, he's eventually killed by a fire poker by Sarah. After Pierce and Sarah escape the asylum, Sarah plans to banish the Shambler to atone for her sins, and with Pierce needing to help Algernon find a necklace in order to do so. This is where I noticed that Pierce, no matter what option you choose back in the bookstore, whether that's asking for Algernon's help or not, Pierce is a complete and utter dickhead to the only person who has any knowledge on the island about the occult who's willing to help. And I find this really weird because Pierce is not really like this to anyone else in the game. He's not a complete and utter dickhead to anyone else except for Algernon. I don't know, I just find it really jarring. Anyways, Pierce finds the necklace, giving it to Algernon just to be notified that the police are here to arrest him. And I find this scene really stupid, down to the animations and down right to the storytelling.
Great police work. You can try to play smart with me all you want, Pierce. Witnesses have identified you as the one who set fire to Riverside.
Witnesses? How convenient. That's not the whole story, is it?
I don't care about your stories. Save them for the judge. You know, us cops, we base our investigation on facts and testimonies. You might want to try that next time.
What in the blue fuck was that?
Because what really doesn't make sense is that Sarah Hawkins is on the other side of the door. Later on, it's revealed that they're not working with the cult at all. So it just makes Pierce and the police come off as incompetent fucking idiots in this scene. Since Pierce is now in jail, he's visited by an entity known as the Leviathan, who's actually been communicating with us with our nightmares and our visions, which is why he is here to show Pierce some more visions. These include Sarah Hawkins banishing the Shambler and losing her last bit of sanity, and another vision is of Cat Baker discovering Chief West is dead amidst the chaos, as people start turning into, I guess, fish zombies. After waking up for one last final time, Bradley releases Pierce from his cell, asking him to kill him before he turns into one of those fish zombies.
Fuck it!
I'm sorry.
After deciding or not, Pierce heads to the whaling station, where he finds and kills Fuller, and as well as frees the Leviathan in a dreamlike sequence as the cult attempts to capture him. Later on, Pierce washes up on the shore, finding Colden still alive somehow, but driven completely and utter insane. He experiences visions that lead him up to Sarah Hawkins, who is preparing to summon Cthulhu. With the stage all being set up, it's time to choose which ending. So there are 4 possible endings that the players can give based on various choices, which really don't matter, and these significantly impact the game's ending and understanding of the narrative's more profound mysteries, I guess. But if you really want to receive all these endings, all you have to do is save Algernon when you're banishing the Shambler, and just not have a low enough sanity by the end. And to be honest, you can receive all 4 endings in one playthrough. After discussing these endings, I'll share my general thoughts on the overall story, reflecting the thematic elements and how well it captures the essence of Lovecraftian horror. The ritual ending. If Pierce's sanity is low enough, he performs the ritual, summoning Cthulhu. The result is honestly really chaotic, with Cthulhu briefly appearing for literally 2 seconds, driving everyone completely into madness and violence. Pierce ends up killing Sarah Hawkins before the scene cuts to black. The final image shown in Pierce's office is with him being overrun by a cosmic entity, reflecting the complete and utter collapse of his sanity. Next, there is the survival ending, where Sarah Hawkins decides to die if Pierce maintains a high enough sanity while refraining from performing the ritual. Pierce returns to Boston, deeply traumatized and haunted by a painting of Sarah Hawkins' death, signifying his unending psychological torment. The counter-ritual ending. Performing the counter-ritual seals away the cult, but leaves Pierce in a state of total madness. He is returned to the asylum where Dr. Fuller remains alive somehow, marking a grim conclusion to Pierce's struggle. And finally, we're down to the last ending, or the self-destructing ending. Pierce chooses to end his own life, making his final act of free will his death. His death is depicted in the office, which is purged of all of his belongings, symbolizing the ultimate escape from the horrors he faced. And to be honest, the ending that I like the most is really definitely the survivor ending. It feels more fitting because Pierce's relentless quest for the truth ultimately cost him a part of his soul, leaving him haunted by the past events. And honestly, this somber conclusion aligns perfectly with Lovecraftian themes, emphasizing the pervasive darkness. It definitely defines the genre. It also echoes the quote from earlier from H.P. Lovecraft: "If I am mad, it is mercy. May the gods pity the man who in his callousness can remain sane to the hideous end." This ending underscores the chilling price of knowledge and the fragile human mind when confronted by cosmic horrors of the unknown. So in conclusion, Call of Cthulhu falls short of my expectations, primarily due to the troubled development process at Cyanide Studios, which forced the team to rush the project in a year and a half, which is a really tight deadline considering this project was in development for almost 6 to 4 years. It seems like Cyanide Studios were not the ideal team for crafting a Cthulhu game. The game's elements feel disjointed, and the lack of cohesion in the narrative contributes to the overall sense that the project was misaligned. I do appreciate they try to use Lovecraftian themes. Honestly, they really don't explore too much, with this tight deadline resulting in an undeveloped narrative that often seems like a subpar horror TV show at some points. Not to mention the technical difficulties, including clipping problems as well as inconsistent lip syncing, really further detract from the overall experience. But to be honest, like many other Cthulhu projects, this one just had too much going on for it, for all the elements to come together to even create a decent game. While the game initially shows promise at the beginning, it laying out great gameplay elements, only for most of the gameplay to disappear by the near end. Despite its flaws, the game does possess a certain charm, particularly for fans of Lovecraftian media. And honestly, the only standout aspects include the atmosphere, such as the sound design and music, as well as the environmental detail. However, the game is still flawed by rushed pacing, superficial exploration of Lovecraftian themes, and a really unsatisfying story. While it offers a unique Lovecraftian experience, it falls short of even being a game. So it's worth considering if you can find it on sale, especially if you have a keen interest in Lovecraftian media. Well, that's all I have to say for this game after playing 100 hours of it. And no, I'm not joking. I really do appreciate your thoughts on this review as I put a lot of time into this. Any improvements or suggestions on certain areas would be helpful. Special thanks to Mr. No Life for supporting the channel all the way back when it started. And honestly, man, keep up the amazing content. And with that being said, remember to stay right on the mark.